course, a few questions already. Let's go through each one of them from the start. But of course, if someone has any questions coming up and so on, feel free to raise your hand and let's have a chat. So the first question, of course, was if you wanted to introduce yourself, tell us a bit of what you worked on, the companies that you worked on, and how did you get into software development?
Yeah, sure. So hi, everybody. My name is Marco, and I live in Verona. And I have been working in tech companies, tech startup or scale up for the past 12 years or something. I started as a backend developer, and then I did a little bit of front-end development. And then I worked as a full stack developer. So basically, I usually say that I did a bit of everything, but I'm not an expert in anything. And after that, and more recently, I transitioned into a more managerial type of role, which is what I have been doing for the past few years. How did I get into software development? I think it was a mix of luck and being intentional. I was lucky because my father bought a PC when I was young. I was in primary school because he used to use, like, he did some, he used word processing and spreadsheet for his work. So I had the chance to play with the PC since I was a child. But I think that my real meeting with, my first meeting with software development was a few years later. I think I was 11 years old or 12 years old at school. I remember that I saw this guy who was 1 year older than me. So he was 12 or 13 years old, and he was staring at a black screen, and he was typing some weird things with the keyboard. And I got curious, and I asked him what he was doing. And basically, he told me that he was coding. He was building some sort of video games. And I got curious. I asked him if he could teach me. And in a few days or weeks, he taught me the basics of programming. The language was QBasics. Yes, I was able to write my own very basics and rudimentary version of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire after a few weeks. So that's how I got into software development. Now I'm working as a head of engineering at Skiller Whale, which is a UK-based startup. I'm working remotely for Skiller Whale. Our mission is, since I don't think you know what Skiller Whale does, our mission is to change what tech team are capable of. And we do that via live team coaching sessions. So basically, what we do is we talk with software engineers and we identify their strengths and weaknesses from a technical skills perspective. And then we create some personalized, tailored plan, focus only on the skills that are like missing in their stack, let's say. And we deliver, so that we can deliver regularly, weekly or fortnightly session, focus on what's really relevant for them. And those sessions are led by a coach who is an expert in that technology. And these sessions are a mix of theory and hands-on exercises. So there are code involved because we believe that, yeah, active learning is way more effective than passive learning. And yes, before that, I worked as a CTO at Everly, which is actually a grocery delivery company. And I worked there for almost 8 years. And yes, I've seen hear some friendly faces because I met some of you during my time at Every, and I guess that being a CTO at Every was my most relevant working experience so far.
Nice, thank you. I also have a question on your current company. Is it just engineering skills, so coding and so on, or also management skills?
Yeah, that's a good question. No, so we started with hard skills. So we have coaching plans on, I don't know, Python, TypeScript, React, so programming languages, but we also have something more, let's say, high level, such as how to write RESTful API, how to write and design RESTful APIs. We have also coaching plans on tooling, such as Docker or AWS. And actually, this year we have started also writing content, writing curricula on power skills, which are, so we prefer to call soft skills as power skills because we believe it's a better way to phrase this. And we have started doing that because we believe that our approach, the live team coaching approach, can be applied also to soft skills or power skills. And because this type of coaching is usually overlooked. I also can talk because for my personal experience, everything I learned, basically I learned on the job. So it would have been nice to have some proper, let's say, coaching also on power skills, such as, I don't know, how to give feedback, how to manage your stakeholder, how to, tell people bad things, how to talk with people that are not technical, things like that.
Okay, clear. Thanks. Actually, this brings to the third question before the second one, which was how did you grow exactly in your career? It was like, did you seek out a network of people inside the industry or organically over the years? How did it happen?
That is a nice question because I must confess that sometimes working as CTO can feel quite lonely because you don't have anybody within your company that can truly understand your concerns, challenges, and worries. Basically, so I remember that when I was working as a software developer, it was fairly easy to pick up somebody else's brain, right? To ask for, pair programming session, debugging session, brainstorming session. So it was easier to talk to somebody else. While as a CTO, it is quite harder to do that. So I think that the power of networking and to increase your network also outside of the company is something that I learned too late, probably, as other things. And so I think it was quite difficult to do because you have to be intentional and you have to make some effort in order to do that. I have been helped by the CEO of Everly, who basically put me in contact with other CTOs across the Italian ecosystem. But I also remember that I have proactively reached out to somebody else. I remember that I wrote some LinkedIn messages to other CTOs just to ask if they wanted to have a chat because I was struggling with some problems and I wanted to understand how if they have faced the same problem and how they have resolved that problem. I don't know if that was the point of the question, though.
Yeah, that was it. I actually can totally relate. So it's a pretty lonely job, and you need to reach out to somewhere and get help from some other people. So yeah, totally comprehensible. You learn on the job.
Yeah, and by the way, if I may add something, I think that of course this is helpful for if you're working as a CTO or an engineering manager, or you have like an engineering management, a technical leadership position. But it is extremely helpful also if you are a software engineer or a principal engineer. I think it can be generalized and applied to everybody.
Yeah, totally agree. If there is no questions, I'll go with the next one, which is more history for you. How did you move and did you grow from backend developer to CTO at Everly? So can you tell us a bit about the journey? Also, I checked on LinkedIn. I saw that you had the backend developer position for 7 months. So
Yeah.
that was quite a quick, big step up. So can you tell us about it?
Yes, sure. This is interesting because I am not very comfortable with defining what you do only with your job title, because being a CTO of a 6 people team in a startup is extremely different from being a CTO of a late stage scale ups or a corporate. I think this is pretty obvious. So, yeah, I got promoted to CTO after a few months, but you don't have to imagine like a performance review process or promotion process. I guess that the process was as simple as Enrico, the founder of Supermercato 24 and my old boss, probably asked somebody in the team if they were happy to have me as a CTO, and I guess that they probably said yes, that's okay. But basically, the history was very simple. So we grew. Luckily, our business was going well. We grew very quickly, and after a few, when I joined, I think we were only 5 employees within Skillerway. Sorry, Supermercato 24. After a few months, we were growing. We had like probably something around 15 employees, and the tech team was bigger. We were in 6, I think, when I was promoted CTO. So there was like this necessity, this need to have somebody who could have been the responsible for the team. But at that time, I think I was no more than a glorified tech lead, probably. But after that, of course, as we said, I have been working for 7 years as a CTO, but I usually also say that I have been worked at 7 different companies, probably, because across those years, we grew so quickly, and so for example, we moved from like a 5 people, very local, based in Verona tech company to an international company with almost 300 people. We expanded geographically our business from just an Italian business to a business that delivered groceries also in Poland, in France, and in Czech Republic. We went through an acquisition because before launching the Poland market, we acquired one local Polish player. We rebranded from Supermercato 24 to Everly. So I guess that, yeah, across those years, my role changed from a very deep vertical hands-on focused on coding type of role to a very broad and horizontal type of role. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think some of us here can relate on the yearly change of job that we were saying, because we also started in like 4 or 5 people. A few of them are here from the first round of hiring when we were about 10, 12 people, and then again, we're not 300 yet, but we're probably growing fast enough to get there, maybe. Yeah,
I hope so.
And as you said, no, you grew up this team very quickly in 7 years, of course, but it was a huge team, and you said it was a remote first team. We actually achieved this during the pandemic, a bit out of necessity, also because it was in our idea for the future, of course, and the pandemic just accelerated it. But can you tell about of the challenges that you faced and eventually some tricks that you used to make it work and to grow a big team like this?
Yes, sure. I can try to do that. So, to be honest, also, first thing, also Supermercato 24 transitioned into a remote organization, because when Supermercato 24 was born, it was a local company. And it was in 2015. We started working remotely out of necessity, also in our case, but it was 217. So 3 years before the pandemic. And it started, I think it is important to remember the context there, because 2017, the standard de facto work setup was going to the office 100% of the time. So there were no like hybrid or fully remote organization, or there were very few remote organizations, at least in Italy. In fact, one of the challenges that I had was kind of not fight. Fight is not the right term, but argue, persuade my boss that working remotely was the right thing to do. So what was the problem? Basically, the problem was it was a very stupid, not stupid, a very simple use case. So basically, one of the developer of the team needed to move back to his home for personal reasons. And this would mean like moving a few hundred kilometers away from Verona. So, of course, working at the office was not an option. And, we were a 2 years old organization, and I didn't want to lose him because it would have been a mistake. Also, he was a friend and a very skilled employee as well. So I told Enrico that to me, it was not the right idea to look for another developer. And so we had to discuss about it, but ultimately he told me, well, Marco, you're responsible for the tech team, so you have the responsibility of it and you have to make it work. So I accepted the challenge, and luckily it paid off because it worked very, very well. But it was easier because he already knew the product, the processes, or the lack of processes, the team, and everything. After a few months with probably the Series A, I don't know, but in 2017 also we needed to grow the team. And actually this was kind of a leitmotif during my time at Every, that we needed to almost double the team year over year. And this was another huge challenge because, for example, if you think about this problem from a pure mathematical perspective, if you are in 6 and you have to double the team, it means that you have to hire other 6 engineers, which means that you have to onboard 1 new team member every 2 months. But what about from 30 to 60? It's like 5 times that. So you have to have a process because you have to delegate something to others. You have to ensure that there are no biases in the process. You have to involve other people. So that was another challenge. Another challenge was to how to find developers, because especially at the beginning we had a very low budget, so we couldn't pay very well. Also, our brand was weak, if non-existent at the beginning, so nobody knew Supermercato 24, so it was hard to attract developers. And also another challenge was, okay, now that we have hired developers, how can we make it work? Because, sorry, I missed one important thing. After a few weeks, we realized that it was not possible to grow the team staying local. So that's why I decided to start growing also remotely and internationally. In fact, the first developers from abroad was hired in 2017. And maybe it's not a trick, but also something that relates with the previous question about the networking and the importance of asking to somebody else. I think that one of the most useful tips that I received was exactly because I remember that I asked Fabio Zecchini, the CTO at Musement at those days, help for this, because they were already working remotely, and so I asked for help. And basically he told me, you should hire somebody who has already experience working remotely, so they teach you how to work remotely if you don't know how to do that. And basically that's what we did. So the first few hires, remote hires that we did, was one of the requirements was to have some relevant working experience remotely, and they have helped and guided us so much in setting up the processes and the culture also of a remote organization.
Nice. Even to this question, I can say we can totally relate. Probably we are in that phase where we move from 30 to 70. So as you said, we are working on our hiring plan, and it's a challenge when you need to scale up this fast.
Yeah.
And I think you were also more lucky because we did it during the pandemia, as I said. So we were not hiring, so we could not. We had the people that was already with us. Someone actually left, so we actually had to reorganize ourselves together in that moment. So meetings, all the chats we had at the table, and it was a big challenge for a few months, and we found our way. We are still fixing stuff probably at some point, but yeah, it's a very, very interesting challenge. Thanks.
Yeah.
And I'll go with the next question, which is in your role today as a CTO, so or in Everly, where you manage a lot of people. How did you know you were doing a good job in that role, and what was the first things or tasks, objective, or questions that you had every morning when you woke up? The challenge is not that you said, they change year to year, and when you are at some scale, your job is completely different. So
Yeah. The honest question is that I don't know. You don't really know if you are really doing a good. I mean, but it's more like a feeling probably. So there are things that you can check. For example, for a CTO, I think that you can look at I don't know, turnover, if people are leaving the company rather than joining the company, if the mood is high, if the collaboration is healthy, if people are proactive and they want to contribute, that means that there is a healthy culture, which probably means that you are doing a good job. Also, when it comes to goals and KPIs, if you are achieving your goals, achieving your target, it means that probably you have set the right target. And if you are not hitting all the target, it's fine as well. So I wouldn't necessarily relate the success of a CTO, if you are doing a good job, with only the goals achievement, because the reality is much more complex than that. So that's why I said that it's more like of a feeling. But I think you can definitely tell if you are doing a good job with this kind of, if you talk to people, if they're happy, if you're able to have also, this is another important thing, I think. If the relationship and the collaboration between areas of the company is healthy, so if there are bridges rather than silos, because I think that also ultimately a CTO must be able to, I would say, build bridges rather than silos. So if cross collaboration is across all the company, and there is a healthy communication with the business part, but also within the product area between engineers and product managers and designers, I think you can tell if you're doing a good job with this.
Yeah, totally agree. I think in growing a team super fast, one of the main challenges you have is to keep the culture of the team. You hope you transferred it, to the engineering manager, and so to the new hires and so on. So yeah, yes. And on this, bye, Phil.
Hi, Marco. I'm Phil. Nice to meet you. Another question regarding remote working. Don't you think that the frictions that you have experienced around remote working belongs only from a lack of trust? I mean, if the company has good processes that allow remote working, what can go wrong? I mean, many things could go wrong, but are they saying that could go wrong if everybody work in office or not?
I think you are right, in the sense that definitely if you are working in a company where there is no trust, it doesn't matter if you are working remotely or if you are working at the office.
Yeah.
Absolutely 100%. However, I don't think that's the only thing necessary. So it's not only about trust, because I think that, I don't know, I don't know how to translate laico in English, but I'm very open and not, let's say, extremely. So I guess that what I'm trying to say is that remote work can also not work if you have trust, because there are people that actually really prefer to not work in a remote organization. I remember that when I was interviewing engineers in Everly, there were roughly, I think I did also the math, roughly 7% of the interviews that I did was with people that were not happy with working remotely. And it was not a matter of processes, trust, collaboration. It was just they didn't want to work with that setup.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask
Yes.
why they didn't want to work remotely, if you can say it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it was fairly personal, some personal reasons, but there was this pattern. So they tried working remotely, so they knew that they didn't like it. So it was not something that they didn't like it because they didn't try it. I think they tried it, but they lack the human connection that only in a face-to-face setup they had. So that's the main reason. I think that this was the main reason.
Totally agree with the human connection issues. It's the big disadvantage. Thank you, Marco.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think this human connection is actually also some of the bridges, no, that you said before, that you risk to lose, and we can also see it sometimes, no, some discussions that come up that could be solved face to face in 5 minutes. If there's no communication, you miss the chance to discuss it. Things build up.
Yeah.
So these are exactly the kinds of things that can, if they explode, they can bring a bad experience to people. Yeah.
Yeah.
I see. Bye, Marco.
Very quickly before Grazia, just to add a little color on this. So we were not like a fully remote organization in the sense that we never meet up together, because actually a couple of times per year, or at least once per year, we organized a big company or team meetup or offsite. And I think this is something that companies that are working remotely, they usually do, exactly for that reason, because it is important to have also some, face-to-face meeting. And another thing that we did at the beginning was the onboarding was live, let's say, in one of our offices. Sorry, Grazia, I think you wanted to ask something. No, probably no.
Oh, sorry. Yes, since you talk about to build a bridges through people, and what is your strategy to do this, or the strategy that you followed during that period?
Thank you, Grazia. This is a very, very interesting question. And I think I would answer by saying that you can build bridges. Bridges are like built naturally if incentives are aligned across the team and the function. So for example, if you have engineers that have to reach goal A, and product manager that have another goal, and designer, they have another different goal. Of course, they will try to work, they have a different motivation because they have different incentive. So if you are able to create like the same incentive for the same goal for everybody, so the responsibility of some targets, some goals is the same and shared across different functions, I think that naturally you are designing an organization that seek for having like bridges. If you have a separate target, it is very, very more difficult to do that. Another example, this can be controversial or unpopular, I don't know, but I am extremely against MBO, management by objectives, so bonus, unless they are valid for everybody at the same way, with the same ratio, let's say. Because if somebody or some teams have some personal bonus related to something, and somebody else they don't have that. That is clearly a conflict, and of course this is a design that makes building bridges more difficult. I don't know if that's resonates with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Thanks, Marco.
Thank you.
Since we're speaking, about actually growing the team and these challenges and so on, in the recruitment process that we were discussing before, when you need to hire at scale, what were the KPIs that you used to monitor and leverage or improve in the process, and mostly for critical positions, in upper levels of the structure?
Yeah. Okay. Well, so in all honesty, we didn't have so many KPIs. We had just a few KPIs. So we measure the number of hires versus plan. So this year we have to hire 30 engineers. How many? We hire 30% of versus plan. The time to hire, so how much time it takes from the first communication between us and the candidate and the offer, and we measure the funnel. So each time in the step to measure the bottleneck and the turnover. So basically the number of people leaving the company every year. So just 3 KPIs, and it was done manually. So I remember I did this with a spreadsheet because those numbers are very slowly changing, and you don't need a strong process to monitor that. Actually, though, you asked about the upper levels of the ladder position. One thing that I have to say is that in Everly, we never hired, let's say, senior managerial role from the outside in tech. So we only promoted because I was responsible for that. I only promoted people internally for upper level position. Yeah.
And I'll follow up on this question. Did you have a strict process for hiring engineers in terms of coding challenge before, or did you do an interview? Did you change the process in the way? Did you find the best way to, maybe for senior and juniors, you can have different ways of evaluating. So yeah, how did you manage?
Yes, no, that's a good question. Of course, it changed the process across the years, and in fact, one of the things that changed was that at the beginning we were doing some sort of coding challenges, some sort of take-home assignment, but then we decided to stop doing that because we realized that we were losing candidates because of that. And the take-home assignment was fairly simple, I would say, something that you would probably, it would take like 2 to 4 hours to do that. But it was seen as a friction element in the process. So at some time we stopped doing that. The process was, I think, fairly straightforward. There were multiple steps, 3 or 4 steps according to the seniority, and it was a mix of technical interviews and a mix of technical questions and behavioral questions. The technical questions were never about live coding, because also this is unpopular, but I think it is extremely stressful, and you cannot really evaluate somebody's skill in a live coding challenge, basically. The technical questions were more about, okay, here we have this problem. How would you approach this problem? How would you, what are the things that you would do first? How would you solve that? So it was like a discussion on how to solve some high-level problem, and then we went into details, and we could have talked about technologies and implementation details, but without coding involved. And the behavioral questions were because we wanted to evaluate if the candidate would have been a fit in terms of our values. We didn't have values. We call it operating principle, but they are fairly similar to company values. One important thing to say maybe is that in the process, not only engineers were involved, but since we were working together with product and designer and data scientist, so some of the interviewer were also, especially for the behavioral questions, so some of the interviewer were also, I don't know, designers or product managers. And I think this is very healthy. And of course, also the vice versa is valid. So for designer position or product position, sometimes engineers were asked to be interviewer in some process.
This is an interesting take. I think we agree on some values. We also don't like the live coding interviews. Nobody performs well under that kind of pressure, in my opinion. So we also have technical challenge and technological interview, and then what we call wide knowledge, which is what you said, maybe more behavioral assessment. Mostly that is done with engineering managers or myself or the CTO and so on. I was asking this question because we actually switched the technical test first to see if it would save time, but as you said, we found a drop in people maybe that didn't know us. So putting the interview before gave us the opportunity. We're still seeing if it gives us the opportunity to know the candidate, then we still give the chance to do the technical test, but they approach it with a different mindset, knowing the people that you're going to work on. Yeah, so it's something that, as I said, in this phase that we're scaling the hiring is a topic, is a challenge that we're trying to solve.
Yeah.
And one last question about team and organization, then we can move on engineering, is on this journey that you made, what is one or two things that you have done differently if you have another chance, to go back and change?
You mean for the recruitment part?
No, in general, as your career as a CTO or all the 7 years of the scale up.
Yeah, well, there are many many things. Well, one thing for sure is that I think that one mistake that I did as a CTO was to wait too much before adopting cloud technologies. So in Everly, we were not really implementing a DevOps philosophy. And by DevOps, I mean, literally the meaning of the term, mixing development and operation. So we had an external company, a couple of consultants that were responsible for all the infrastructure management, the provisioning of the hardware, basically. So we couldn't really have entirely end-to-end ownership, and I think that was one of my biggest mistakes, because yes, using like fully managed cloud providers can also, it's not that you cannot do that without cloud providers, but it is easier to do that with those. And one of the reasons why we didn't do that, it was because I overlooked the importance of it, and also we were extremely frugal. So platforms such as AWS can become quickly expensive if you are not really, you don't pay attention. One other things probably would have been to, I don't know, write things down as soon as possible, as early as possible. And if not, yes, this is another thing about the documentation. It's not only writing things down, but it is also maintaining the documentation and updating it. So yes, I think this is also one of the things that I would change. Yeah, and probably, I don't know, the choice of the technology was probably something. So I remember that, for example, at the beginning, we started with a native app for the customers. So, and probably, I don't know if it was the right choice to have, a Android app, an iOS app, and a web app, which meant three different application, three different technologies, and it was harder to iterate and develop the app. So probably it would probably had more sense to have the native app for the shopper app rather than the customer app, because the customer app at the time, it was an e-commerce. So I think you could probably have achieved that with, I don't know, something like React Native. Well, there were not React Native at those days probably, but there were similar technologies. But yeah, a lot of things that I did was.
I was saying the same, because we see technologies as they are today, but then you look back and say, okay, I could have done it with this. Okay, this that didn't exist at the time. So yeah, it's always something that comes to mind.
Yeah.
Bye, Phil.
Do we have time for another question, Cass?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
If you have, Marco, some time, we have three more questions for you, but if you have a strict time, we can.
No.
That's fine. I promise. Marco, you said that you lost devs because of the take-home assignment. Can I ask you what were the reasons? Maybe they don't want to waste their time, because honestly, 4 to 6 hours to build a take-home assignment, it's quite a short period of time. I've spent many more hours to do a single take-home assignment in the past.
Yes, well, in all honesty, I don't have the proof, but I think that the main reason why we were losing so many candidates because of the take-home assignment was because startups and scale-up were aggressively hiring and growing across all the world. So every developers had like multiple parallel process, and they had a lot of different options. So if all of the processes required like a take-home assignment, of course, that was not possible for the developer, for candidate. So we prefer to remove that friction, because it gives us more chance to attract developers, because there were companies that they were doing that and companies that they were not doing that. And if you have a lot of options as a candidate, of course you optimize for the easiest path, right? I think that was the main reason.
Okay. Strange, kind of, but okay. Every dev is different.
Yeah. Also, if you are spending a lot of time doing take-home assignment, I think that you should be paid, honestly. I see that there are some companies that are doing take-home assignment that requires maybe a couple of days of work. That's fine if you pay that time, because I think that work should be paid.
Totally agree.
Yeah, this is a feedback that we also got some feedbacks about maybe the test to be more complex, or we try to simplify it because, as you said, the perception we have is if you have more interviews going on, even if it's 4 or 5 hours, but you have 5, that quickly becomes a week of work, and you might not have the time. And on our side, I also think that's why we will reverse the process, that if you don't know the company that you're going to work for or what your colleagues will be, just taking a home assignment, you're not so motivated to spend those 4 hours or that day, not even knowing, the people, or if the company is interested in you and so on. Yeah.
Okay, Cass, but if I am very interested in a company and they give me a very huge take-home assignment, who cares? I spend 20, 30 hours, but I want the job or not.
Yeah, with you, we were lucky, probably. But not all people thinks the same.
And also, if I can add, I think it's unfair, right? Because you are spending 20 hours, 30 hours for the company, but how many hours the company is spending for you?
Yeah,
so
totally.
That's why. So if, for example, pair program, whoever does pair programming or live coding session, I think that is fair because you are both spending time together, but because that is like balanced, right? While I built this huge application and then send me the results, that's not really fair unless it's paid.
Okay, but it's very, very stressful. Okay, a coding session with a stranger or more than one.
And I know, in fact, I don't like coding session.
And they are a very divisive arguments, I know.
Totally. In fact, I can tell you my experience, my opinions, but I know those are only mine, probably.
Okay, I shut up myself, I promise. Thank you.
So we have a few more questions, but we're almost out of time. So Marco, if you have, I don't know, 10 minutes and so on, we try to go through them quickly. But if you have time,
I have time, but also if you want to close it before, I mean, I'm happy, as you wish.
No,
I can stay.
I'm super interested. So of course, if someone has stuff to do, no problem. To the side, and what are some of the principles that you use to scale the engineering organization? So I think both in matter of technology and structure of the team.
Yeah. So, well, I think I said something before. So in terms of technology, the principle was just not use a lot of different tools or technology and have try to keep the same stack for everything, unless there is a strong reason not to use that technology. So, for example, we started using our backend was written mainly in PHP, but at some point we decided to use Python for some huge jobs that requires batch processing, because Python was not really suitable for that role. So one principle is try to use the same technology across all the products and teams. And in terms of structure, I think that I've tried, if it is possible, I think that it is very healthy to have your organization that is a mirror of your business. So what I guess I'm trying to say is that I am very fan of the so-called self-sufficient teams. So teams that are autonomous and being able to own a product so that you have all the skills needed for building, iterating that product and achieve the business KPIs of that product. So you can clearly map some business domains with your broader engineering organization. I say broader because, for example, in the shopper, in the customer, it's the same. In the shopper app team, we had like Android developers, iOS developer. I'm talking about the end of my journey at Everly, not at the beginning, of course. But we had UX UI designer, iOS and Android developers, backend developers, and a data scientist and a product manager. So if you can afford to do that, to hire the people to grow your product, I think that's one very good principle to follow. If that's not the case, then it means that you have shared resources, and that makes everything much more harder, I think.
Clear. Also on our side, we recently defined more clearly the two paths that we found for the engineering manager or the staff or principal engineer, so that focus more on the technology side. Did you have this kind of ladder, and did you see someone maybe moving from one to the other during your career?
Yeah, this is a very interesting topic and something that I'm very fond of, because it would probably deserve an entire session talking about engineering ladder. But yes, I think this is one of my biggest. This was one of my biggest challenges at Everly. The process that it took for me to create and implement and deliver, let's say, the engineering ladder was very long. It took 9 months. And also we had this dual track, and I'm happy to see that nowadays, becoming a manager is not the only way to get promoted if you are working as a software developer, because actually being a manager or being a maker or an individual contributor, I think those are two almost entirely different jobs. So I have seen people shifting between the two paths. I have also seen this within the same company, but from my experience, I think it is more likely that this is happening between jobs. So people that move from a managerial role at company A will work as a senior engineer at company B, or vice versa. Within the same company, I think it is harder to do, but it's possible, and I've seen this happening.
Clear. It's a question that often comes up, because maybe someone gets into the management path, but of course, as you said, it's a completely different job. You never know if you actually like it, or you discover that you love technology more, or the opposite. So
yeah,
it's always an interesting question. And I don't know if there's any questions. Last two is more about working with product and design. So the product part, which we keep it for last, but it's probably one of the most important ones. So what has been your experience in working with PMs, designers, as you said, when building new products and iterating on existing products? So quite wide question, but if
Yeah.
you have some.
I will be honest with you. Working with the product and designer can be delightful, but can also be a nightmare. It's very, very difficult. As I said earlier, I think it is because if incentives are not aligned, it can be a nightmare, but not because they are different types of role, because it's impossible to have a healthy working relationship. If you have to work with somebody and together you have to achieve some goals, but yeah, there are like different type of personal goals. I think that sorry, the question was about building new products and iterating new software, right?
Yeah, the interaction that you have.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to build something new. Sometimes you already have the product. You need to iterate through it. And
so yes, so maybe it is hard to generalize, but maybe I think that I hope I don't offend anybody, but maybe with when building new products, I think it is extremely important to have product manager and designers really there to give boundaries, because sometimes engineers could literally, fly away with their abstractions and optimization, which are sometimes premature when you are building something from scratch. On the other hand, when you are iterating on products, probably it's the opposite, because sometimes it is very important that engineers are there, because yes, sometimes iteration are not really iteration, but they are like brand new products. So yeah, it is very important to have all of these roles together. I think that one other very, very important thing is now it sounds pretty obvious, but sometimes it's not obvious to define, the responsibility and the boundaries of each role. So, for example, the usual and more common setup is that product is responsible for the what to build, and engineering is responsible for how to build, and designer is responsible for the user experience of the product. But that is not always the case. I have seen other maybe product-led companies where the product is responsible for the why. So it's a very business function. So they decided we have to work on this problem because this problem is what is really important now. And then the engineering team is responsible for what to build to solve that problem. And designers are responsible for how. So it really can change, but it is extremely important to define what are the responsibility for each role.
Yeah,
I don't know if
totally.
that is also your experience.
Yeah, it goes with the next question, no? Because in a fast-moving business, you get tons of requests. As you said, oftentimes you get, this is a small thing, and then you go deep into it and you discover it's a completely new product inside another one, which is a challenge that you always face. No, over-engineering, of course, is never the correct solution. But if we were to speak about engineering, I would ask you, how much did you value the quality of the engineering side, quality of code and stuff like this, because you still face the same challenge, when you need to bootstrap something, when you have to maintain a project that is in place, and you need to evolve, but you need to evolve it fast. So it's always a compromise. We know the answer, but how much did you?
It depends on what you mean by quality. Quality is a very difficult term to translate into a real thing. So, for example, I think I valued quality. For example, if by quality you mean that you have tests, automated tests, of course that was like paramount, but not for everything. For example, when I joined Supermercato 24, I was the one who built the first version of the logistic platform. And I remember that I told Enrico, my boss, Enrico, we can go as quickly as you want, but I will write tests. I don't want to ship a code without tests because I cannot sleep well at night. So we had unit tests and functional tests and also end-to-end tests in the backend part of our system from day one. But we didn't have unit test or UI test because we couldn't afford it at those days. So I guess it's always a matter of trade-off. But for example, if by quality you mean test, then absolutely you cannot have a product who is used by thousands of users without tests. If you mean that code coverage should be 100%, why? I don't know.
Yeah, that goes probably in over engineering stuff. Just to do some sharing, probably. I think also we had the first bootstrap of the company where we had this platform really bad coded, so unreadable code for me, is lack of quality, lack of tests, so zero tests, and so on. As the team grew, and even if it was at the beginning of the company, he did his job, of course, this platform, but it quickly became the black hole of resources to do even simple things, because you touch something, you break something else. And I think postponing that approach, that you talked about right now, that was we lost some months, let's say. Okay, we didn't lose much, but it was a very expensive path to take and to not address early. Because we addressed the architecture immediately. We also were in a private cloud provider. That was clear to us. That was to be fixed, but not the coding part. Then we had to do some refactorings that lasted some years, I would say, because so much stuff was built on top of it. And you pay the price.
Yeah, of course. It's technical debt, right? Even though I am not very happy with that term, but it's
So last questions, if there are no others, is still on the product side, but more on the let's say stakeholders side of things. How did you balance when you were scaling up the need for rapid development that was asked for the business and new features? When again, you might have big projects running or technical debt to solve, so it's strategically important, but the business is growing fast, or you maybe have even stakeholders that move fast and they want things soon, yesterday, and so on. How did you balance this?
This is hard, and I am not sure I have always been able to balance that very well. What I think is relevant and useful is to try to explain what are the problems of rapid development and of the move fast approach with not with technology jargon, but with clear impact on the business. So I think that one good example was maybe something that, yes, it was. So we had at Everly, we were integrating retailers and by integrating retailers, I mean, their catalog assortment, their prices, and we use those information to populate the things that you can see in the e-commerce. And that process was quite complex, very complex. I would even say chaotic, because every retailers have their own API. What API? They had CSV, different formats. Somebody had APIs. Somebody were sharing CSV via FTP, via secure FTP, via Google Drive storage. So it was a very messy thing, and we were doing this update process at night, because that was the only way where we could update prices without taking a hit on the usability of the website. And I think how we convince the business to work on to stop something, to stop the growth for improving the architecture, was because we clearly said, hey, we are now integrating like 2 new partners. I don't remember the exact number, but it was something on the line of, we are integrating 2 new partners per week. With this growth, in 2 months, we cannot onboard any new partners at all, because it is not possible to add other resources without having the platform unusable. While if we stop for, 1 month and we revisit the whole architecture, we would be able to ingest like 10 times the size of products, and we can grow like 10%. But we need to stop integrating and working as usual and too quickly for that amount of time. So using some clear business terms, let's say, we explain what the problem was without really saying, hey, we need to move from a single update to a bulk update approach. We need to use now an asynchronous approach with queues rather than RESTful APIs. So because that was not really meaningful to them, we said, hey, if we don't stop and we refactor the code, we cannot grow anymore. And this is what the time that we need. And if we do this, we are able to achieve that. I guess that's something you should aim to do.
And did you manage to always have like a business KPIs on the feature requests or implementations that you needed to do?
Not always, to be honest, but I would say that generally, yes. Everly was a fairly KPIs-driven companies, and also the development was at least theoretically KPIs-driven. Then also we had all the usual challenges of priorities that change, KPIs that change, and something to build just because we needed to build. But I would say that in general, we were the team, everything that we built was always measured or should have been measured via business KPIs.
Clear. That's a topic that we're trying to address at the moment, because most of times prioritization is based on gut feeling, and okay, some stakeholders maybe are more sensible, but also it's up to us to do these evaluations and to, as you said, change the language rather than technology based on business impact base. Yeah. So this was the last question. Of course, some people left. Luckily, we have the recording. I don't know if there are any questions for Marco. Nope. Okay, I think you answered all we had, Marco. So thanks a lot Thank you for being here. It was super interesting and super nice.
Thank you for inviting me. I was super happy to be here, and I hope it was not too boring.
No, I'll try to open my cam because my connection is not so good. But it was super interesting. I think we can relate a lot on what you said, on the challenges we're facing. So it was really cool.
Thank you.
Thanks again. And if you pass by our offices, we'll for sure get you a couple of beers or more. So
that would be nice.
or some
Thank you.
spritz, of course. It's not the same, but
Yeah. I guess that my Veneto part speaks for itself. Yes. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a lovely evening. Bye bye.
Have a
Thank
good
you,
evening.
Marco.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ciao.